If Starfield doesn't release to critical acclaim, is Xbox doomed? The answer to that question is no. However, there's a but. The biggest but on earth, a but of gargantuan.
Never have I heard such gratuitous use of the word but.
Hey, honey, you ain't ready for this bootay.
I think at this point we take what IGN says with a grain of salt, but recently an article was posted by Destin Legary titled "Starfield feels like Xbox's last chance at redemption." It claims that Starfield is Xbox's last chance at a major AAA title that shows off what the Xbox is capable of. In essence, proving why people should buy an Xbox over a PlayStation, Switch, and even a mid-range PC. This is in the wake of the abysmally low interest in Redfall, which has insanely low numbers already, being the 31st most played game on Xbox after only being out for a fortnight. Phil Spencer, the big CEO of Xbox, has come out to say that Xbox has lost and Starfield won't change things. Someone please pull him off the bridge and let's break this all down. So those who only own an Xbox for their gaming needs and enjoy it, great, you can stop watching this video now and go have fun. This won't apply to you. I just don't want to discourage you unnecessarily, though I did promise big butts, so I'd understand why you'd stick around. So, Destin uses the word redemption. Of course, that set the internet aflame, with even his name trending on Twitter. People are ready to lynch Destin and others are rallying to support. Some examples of what's said are, if Starfield doesn't succeed day one, minute one, and isn't the best game ever, it's the end of Xbox, hot take. Destin is getting hate for this article, but he's right. Gaming journalists not being willfully obtuse about Xbox challenge difficulty impossible. Xbox era even writing a retaliation article, suggesting the gaming industry has it out for Xbox and they're planning on intentionally giving Starfield bad scores in order to bring down the Xbox brand, and that's not even the most wild claim. More on that later. So, is it true? Is Starfield really the last shot before Phil Spencer gets the boot and Microsoft write this gen off as a loss and looks to the next generation for redemption? Let me know below what you think. First, I want to preface this whole video with, I don't have a horse in this race.
You ready to race? Huh?
I don't love console exclusivity, but I'll talk more about that later. I also don't think console loyalty is healthy. I have all modern consoles.
Tremble in fear at our 3 different times.
And I neither care which console is better, nor do I need one to win market share. My channel covers all consoles. In fact, it would benefit from Starfield doing well as I mostly cover RPGs. I love video games and that's all that matters to me, so keep the comments civil. I think it's healthy to talk about where things can improve, and this is not a
"if you're not with me, then you're my enemy"
discussion. I might criticize Xbox or developers, but it's from a good place. I like things to be better. Doesn't mean I don't like Xbox or prefer another console. Usually the people being unreasonable are the ones that bought a console and need to justify their choice to others.
Now give him an achievement.
I don't want to hear from those people. I don't care about the console wars. There are insufferable PlayStation fans just as they are Xbox fans.
Sooner or later, the gamers are going to figure out that we don't have any good new games, and never will. Our only hope is to keep their hatred aimed at each other.
The pettiness needs to stop. Stop reveling in another's failures or getting mad when they succeed. I do, however, care about quality and healthy competition that boosts up the end products of an industry I love. I also know Destin Legary personally. You might remember that Arix, Destin and I had a podcast called Loot Drops together. So I might not be the most objective, as I definitely don't want to see him burn. That doesn't mean I won't call him out if I think he's wrong, and I've done that before. So what did he say? I recommend checking out the article. I'll link it in the description below. A few points that Destin brought up that we should highlight are Phil Spencer's comments on the system, the lack of AAA games after Forza, the contrast between consoles, and Xbox needing a win. In terms of lack of games, Destin is entirely correct.
We demand more games! Kill him!
When looking at the internet's response to all this, it all comes down to, well, X, Y, and Z games are promised and Xbox has plenty of other games, and yes, it's true that Xbox has some indie games and other non-exclusive titles, but the point that Destin is trying to make is that Xbox doesn't sit alone in its own ecosystem.
I'm all alone.
People buy a console as an investment that we're promised would pay off with a real reason to pick the Xbox in the first place. Right now, if you want to play games, I wouldn't blame people for choosing the PlayStation or the Switch simply because they have a bigger library. and a more reliable track record of releasing great games. The Xbox 360 was a great console not because of the hardware, but because it had the games to support it, so we know Microsoft is capable. Which brings me to the contrast between consoles. Like Destin says, there are a ton of PlayStation, Switch and even PC games that have released during Xbox's drought, many of which getting over 9 out of 10s. Xbox's Game Pass seems great on paper, but I haven't personally used it once. Not because it isn't a great idea, but because there's nothing there I really want to play, or I've received them before release as a member of the press, but I did buy Halo Day 1 and I'm still waiting for local co-op. I bought the Rareware pack, but I'm still waiting for them to do something with the Banjo Kazooie franchise, something that will sell consoles if ever made. The article in essence was highlighting Redfall's major failure. Now, I had early access to review it and I couldn't get it working on my PC. I then moved over to Xbox and it was one of the most poorly made games I've played in a long time. For all intents and purposes, it was an abysmal failure.
I've even got a mate who couldn't get the game running at all. It just kept crashing after a few minutes of playtime.
So, was this Microsoft's fault? Did they not give enough resources to the developers? Did they push them to release before it was finished? Did they not simply provide any support? Really, the reasons don't matter to the people, the end result does. Gamers don't want to hear the why, they just want to play a good game and they're happy to blame those at the top when it isn't. Microsoft knows this and yet they let an unfinished game release. This isn't their first rodeo, yet they fell off the bull.
Where you going, fatty? We're gonna have a party.
Some would say the bull got shot, which is the main point of Xbox era's retaliation article, which we'll cover soon. But to say Microsoft is blameless in this is, I don't know. Phil Spencer, CEO of Xbox, has made some big boss claims over the years, but he did mention that losing their way with Halo would be losing their way with Xbox. He was also more recently on the Kinda Funny podcast and mentioned that Xbox lost the console war this generation. We're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo. There really isn't a great solution or win for us, Spencer said. And I know that will upset a ton of people. But the truth of the matter is, when you're in third place in a console marketplace and the top two players are as strong as they are, and in certain cases have a discrete focus on doing deals and other things that make being Xbox hard for us as a team, our vision is everyone on console has a great experience and they feel like a first-class citizen. So there seems to be either mismanagement over at Xbox or a real defeatist mindset, or both. It's true that digital games mean gamers don't want to lose their digital library, but that was always the case. Your old console would sit there with the discs or the carts that they could only play, while your new shiny console got new games. It seems like an excuse to me. The Xbox lacks great AAA games, and the games they do put out are mismanaged. Phil goes on to say, there is no world where Starfield is an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5s. That's not going to happen. Now this statement is true, but it's not about selling their PS5s and getting Xboxes. This is about trusting Microsoft's ability to help produce top tier games. Phil seems ready to fall on his sword.
Here I go already.
If this is because he's seen Starfield state and doesn't believe it's good enough, or if one game simply won't make the difference in his eyes, is unclear. What is clear though is that leadership has accepted defeat over at Xbox. This is not what we want. Hell, this is not even what diehard Sony fanboys should want, because it all circles back to what I said at the start. Healthy competition is good for gamers.
There's nothing wrong with a little healthy competition.
If one console is dominating, they will have the power and can start slacking once the competition is eliminated. A tight race means a need to put out better products. So in this way, I agree with Destin. Starfield does feel like Xbox's last chance at redemption, but not in the way that many take it, not in the basic sense of the word. It's the last chance to redeem the trust we have in them.
It's not easy to regain someone's trust. It takes a long time, like building a house or pleasing a fat woman.
Xbox will continue to exist. They'll bounce back on the back of a Microsoft fortune, and what a cushy safety net that is. It must be nice. They'll release other games and people will move on from Starfield. However, the sour taste will linger in all but the most diehard Xbox fans. When it comes to trusting them with a new console, many will weigh up the pros and the cons. Reminds me of the South Park episode where the boys are fighting over which console they should all buy in the theme of Game of Thrones.
I will get him a PlayStation. How the PlayStation controller sucks and you know it!
In this context though, there's enough space on the throne for more than one king. It just feels like Xbox need to release more than one solid game this year to make that happen and stop pushing unfinished games out the window. That's where Starfield comes in. Starfield is a massive open world RPG by Bethesda Studios, their main studio. The same studio that brought us Elder Scrolls and modern Fallout. These single player games have broad appeal, but not broad enough that they will be a must play for every gamer. The simple fact that it's not multiplayer will turn a big chunk of gamers off. The fact that it's not a twitch reflex shooter but has RPG mechanics behind firearms will turn off others. It doesn't have insane graphics or some revolutionary mechanics that we know of. I just suspect it's going to be a solid RPG in the style we know and love from Bethesda. That's heaven to my ears personally, but I would be a fool to think that would make the Xbox a must-get console. No, there needs to be a range of top-tier AAA games to make that a fact. So in that way, I disagree with Destin.
Clearly, it is drama at the finest.
Even if Starfield is a smash hit, I don't think Xbox would be out of the fire just yet, nor do I think Xbox will be irredeemable or completely out of the race. Good will be enough. It doesn't need to be great. Xbox simply needs a lot more good games. It's really more that Xbox can't afford another failure, rather than they need a new highly rated game to justify the console.
You failed, Your Highness.
This is not to say that Xbox doesn't bring many joy and that it isn't a good console, it's just that it's been mismanaged. Xbox owners, don't you feel like you deserve more, deserve better?
I deserve this!
Then instead of defending him, you should be demanding more. Loyalty to a brand is ridiculous. They're there to make money off of you, not be your friend. Xbox needs to shift gears and slam down the accelerator. All they're doing is driving around in circles and occasionally doing something random like balancing an old coffee cup on their head. Nothing is better for gamers than healthy competition between big brands, so everyone needs Xbox in the pack, not dead last. Which brings me to console exclusivity. In a perfect world, there'd be no exclusive games. You'd pick your console and that would be enough to play whatever game you wanted. The problem is, it isn't a perfect world, far from it. I'm not motorboating 90s Jennifer Love Hewitt on a yacht in the Bahamas right now. Nintendo will always have their exclusives because of franchises they own like Mario and Pokemon. Nintendo! And Sony have been developing some strong ones over the years. Exclusives give them their own unique edge. Halo was Xbox's trump card, and maybe a handful of others are okay, but Xbox has not given them the love and the attention they deserve. Also, and here's the big problem for Xbox, most of their exclusives can simply be played on PC, bypassing the need for many people to purchase the console. Once again, I don't like consoles having exclusives, but damn if that gives PlayStation and Nintendo the edge if you can only choose one. For many, dusting off their Xbox is rarer than your mum dusting off her... Alright, I'll stop there, I got a little carried away, but the point stands. I like your mum. Understanding all the points made, let's see what the counter is to this. Enter Xbox era, and their article, Starfield could be the best game ever made, it won't change how the industry talks about Xbox. Without reading the rest, you can already tell the direction it's going. The industry unjustly hates on Xbox, and you'd be right, that's the article. A preemptive excuse just in case Starfield isn't reviewed favorably. That doesn't help the industry just as much as saying Xbox needs redemption doesn't help the industry. It starts with, I've been hesitant to even write my thoughts on the insanity being spouted online purely because of the optics of it. Oh, you have Xbox in your website's name? That means you're all fanboys. I mean, Johnny is spot on here. You have Xbox in your website's title. It's a little hard for you to be objective when your revenue is based on the very thing you're talking about doing well. Alright, it would be like if I had a website that sold testicle shavers and I was saying an article written about the joys of a full perky bush was unfair and everyone is just biased against smooth balls. That there is a furry nutsack conspiracy aimed at keeping the bald berries down. Don't worry, there's no ball shaver sponsor today, guys. This is a serious conversation.
There really is nothing like a shorn scrotum. It's breathtaking. I suggest you try it.
The site goes on to say, well, guess what, folks? We've heard that line before. We already got some delightful commentary when we gave Redfall an 8.5, and yes, we know, as an outlet, we were an outlier on that one. Oh my god, hearing that you're biased multiple times doesn't somehow invalidate it. You lose credibility, accept it. If that wasn't enough, they gave Redfall an 8.5. An 8.5! Now, I'm generous with reviews. I give concessions at times, but even I refuse to review that game. This is what I wrote to my subscribers. If a credible outlet gave Redfall an 8.5, they would be put over the coals, roasted, and turned into a joke that only people follow for a laugh, like Kotaku. Anyone that gives Redfall an 8.5 in earnest is not being honest with you or themselves. There is having an opinion, and there is not living in reality. It would be like hiring a toddler for a food critic role. They would give The Delicious Lobster a 0 out of 10 and Candy a 10 out of 10, but completely ignore the fact that it wasn't actually candy, it was asbestos coated in sugar.
You know, tonight for dinner I hope we have a plate full of hot garbage. Oh, it's not...
John goes on to say, the nutshell is, if I can admit, Xbox Era is covering this industry from the perspective of a team that primarily plays on Xbox in order to serve that audience, maybe it's time the rest of the industry consider maybe, just maybe, they're looking at things through the lens of PlayStation. This paragraph makes very little sense. If you're trying to serve your audience, you wouldn't be recommending such an unfinished game to them. If this is an 8.5 compared to the 9.5 you gave Hi-Fi Rush or the 9.4 you gave Jedi Survivor, that's only a 1 point difference. That aside, they said they have to admit that they're looking at things through the lens of PlayStation, as in from the lens of being served great quality exclusives. This is an Xbox website, but they don't seem to want Xbox to improve its games at all. Let's pump out 8.5 rated Redfall games and accuse people of comparing games to PlayStation when they say they expect more. Here's the thing, people naturally will compare options when making a choice how to spend their time and money. That's the reality. Continuing, it doesn't matter what Xbox do, it doesn't matter how many great games they have and do release, they will always be the target for this sort of criticism. It feels good to hate Xbox. No, it really doesn't. It feels like kicking a kid when they tripped over their own arse implants.
You can actually pinpoint the second when his heart rips in half.
There's nothing that's more difficult for me than disappointing the Xbox community.
Asking for more is not the same thing as hating. Asking for improvements is not the same thing as hating. It's like saying I want better living conditions and someone telling me to love Australia or leave it. You can love something but want it to grow. But let's read on to see the point he's trying to make. Microsoft and the Xbox platform have to operate in a world where for every AAA multi-platform game that exists, they're competing against a ratio of gaming outlets and journalists that will always choose PlayStation first. They are, after all, the most popular platform that isn't a Switch, so you might think that quite naturally, writers and websites will think about their SEO rankings and will always choose the platform that's most likely to be searched for online, except Xbox, at least according to Google Trends, is typically searched for more worldwide. Surprise, these negatively slanted articles really do get clicks. Now, for those who don't understand this, I don't blame you. He's basically saying that gaming outlets and journalists always choose to game on PlayStation first, that writers should choose a platform that's searched for the most in order to get the most clicks to their content. However, Xbox gets the most searches, so therefore journalists are making hate articles to capitalize on this, and that in turn works for them. Except there is so much wrong with this paragraph that I can make a whole video on it alone. First and foremost, he's showing us an interest over time graph for only the search terms Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, and Steam. It's not showing even close to the whole picture. For example, pop in PC and you'll see it gets 3 times as much interest as Xbox. If you combine the words PS and PlayStation, there's double that of Xbox. This list is curated to make a point. Also, majority of people are not searching Google for brands, they're searching for products. You type in Dark Souls review or Hi-Fi Rush review, you don't type in Xbox Series X Hi-Fi Rush review. They also don't take into account social media, YouTube, etc. So throw these arbitrary numbers right in the bin. There's more I could say, but let's let him finish a point. If we look at the recent reviews of Jedi Survivor, when publisher EA would have asked outlets what platform they prefer their review code for coverage, over 75% of reviewers given the choice chose PlayStation out of the 142 reviews available on Metacritic. He continues like this for a while, trying to prove that journalists prefer playing on PlayStation. I have to skip ahead a fair bit because it's more back and forth before the point. You're welcome to read it in the link below, but this is where we end up. Sony and PlayStation, as the market leader, have set expectations as to what type of games should count as quality first-person party releases. Microsoft's entire business model is broader, with those types of games being merely one flavor amongst the buffet they've laid. So many video games feel more like movies the way that they're constructed now, and while it's not to my taste, if you want to win Game of the Year at the Nightlies, this is what you need to have on your platform. That's now the expectation for what a AAA game is, and it combines to create a world where only these types of games truly count towards success and recognition. Okay, so we need to deconstruct this like a Mexican restaurant's $20 taco. Basically, he's saying because Sony has the more popular console, they get to dictate what games are classed as AAA and successful. Insert Willy Wonka meme because frankly, I don't even know where to begin with this one. So because McDonald's is the market leader, they get to dictate what a good burger is. No. They get compared to. And if your burger isn't as good as McDonald's, well, your customers are going to expect you to step your game up. Not that PlayStation is McDonald's, but I'm trying to explain the logic, which I really shouldn't because if you made it this far in the video, you're clearly of a different breed. Gamers like what they like, and if you don't adapt, make good games, you're going to be called out. Yes, Hi-Fi Rush was a good game, we enjoyed it and it got rated well. It was not an exclusive that sold consoles. It's as simple as that, whereas many Sony and Nintendo titles do. Look at how Zelda is trending right now. It's not because it's some cinematic focused single note flavor. It's entirely different to God of War or The Last of Us, yet it's an amazingly fun and breathtaking experience. It sells consoles, so throw that whole buffet argument out the window. He continues like this for a while, quoting and agreeing with Phil's comments and talking about negativity when it came to the Tomb Raider exclusivity. It's funny because he brings up the point that gaming outlets gave Xbox the Best Metacritic Publisher of 2021 award, but turns around and says the very same gaming outlets are biased against Xbox. Following the aftermath of Redfall, Starfield can apparently no longer just be a good video game. 8 out of 10 isn't going to cut the mustard. The media cycle must continue, and the seeds are now being firmly planted that if Starfield is anything but the second coming, Microsoft and Xbox would have failed again. Am I alone in thinking this is the most ridiculous, nonsensical way of looking at the industry? Why can't Xbox just be doing good on its own merits, you may wonder? Why do they need an answer to whatever PlayStation game is the flavor of the month? Damned if I know the answer. Sure, let me try to extend the branch here. It's not fair to judge a game based on how good it is, and by extension, judge a console based on how good its games are. Consoles should be judged based entirely on their own merits in a bubble.
It's not really a bubble.
With nothing else to compare to. In fact, don't compare anything at all. You should just choose something, and if it's the wrong choice, double down and tell everyone you made the right one. You should never want quality or expect companies to be accountable for it. You should just be happy with mediocre because you only want something more because someone else has something better for the same price. Did I tell you not to compare? Because you really shouldn't. He goes on to say, either way, Starfield sure is coming, and initial looks at the title are promising. If it's 30 frames per second, I'm sure they'll make for a good headline, of course framed in a negative way with no understanding of the type of game engine or its complexity that makes it extremely likely, at least on console. What if it's not native 4K on Xbox Series X? I'm sure they'll be covered reasonably with minimal hyperbole. Yep, Starfield's on its way, alright. It's going to be a video game, and afterwards, regardless of whether it's amazing or merely okay, Xbox will make more of those. Xbox is doomed indeed. Why wasn't just this the whole article? Yes, I agree with most of this paragraph. I'm all for the game being judged properly. I don't believe 30 frames per second would kill Starfield, and I don't believe it needs to be native 4K on Xbox Series X. We also agree that Xbox will continue to move forward regardless of what happens to Starfield. This is all he needed to say, not bring up excuses as to why we shouldn't be asking for more quality Xbox titles. Also, I'll be frank, most people will play on PC over Xbox given the choice simply because the modding scene with Starfield will be insane. The most ironic thing about all of this is that if I and even Destin get our ways, Xbox will be working harder to put out better games, and Xbox will flourish, including sites like Xbox Era, as they will have a bigger audience to lean on. Whereas if they get their way, their audience will drop as they lose more and more fans to the current decline. This attitude is not your friend, just as the person telling you to smoke doesn't have your best interest in mind,
Smoke.
And your parent that locks you in your room for doing so does.
Are you smoking yet?
In this case, sites like Xbox Era is the store owner selling you cigarettes, telling you they're healthy. They can't sell you cigarettes if you're dead, but short term it does seem like the best option for them. It might seem like I'm the bad guy for saying all this.
You are a bad guy, but this does not mean you're bad guy.
But I would love more reasons to play my Xbox, starting with Starfield, where I'll be getting both an Xbox and PC version. So is the Xbox doomed if Starfield isn't a success? No, but, big but, it will seriously damage their reputation. 2 failures in a row will make people question their ability to manage their studio, questioning Phil's direction, questioning if Xbox really is the right choice when making purchasing decisions. Xbox will live, will continue to put out games, and many people will enjoy it to death, but a failed Starfield means Xbox will fall further behind Nintendo and Sony's reputation. Die-hard fans will keep loving Xbox, but gamers as a whole, those who have more options especially, will find it hard to trust Xbox again without a significant year of good quality game releases. Was Destin's article correct? The essence of it was, yes. This might hurt or annoy some people, but sometimes it's what they need to hear. It's just sad that things like this that need to be said are drowned out by unconstructive PlayStation fanboy trolling. I want nothing more than Starfield to succeed. I want to blow everyone out of the water, and I want it to be everything that I and many others have hoped for. Doom or no Doom, I'll be covering the absolute spontaneous bootay out of it.